welcome.
Hello, and welcome back to day 3 of the Cash Game Festival. We're here, we're ready for some pot limit Omaha, 4 or 5 cards, dealer's choice. Looks like we're just starting with the 5 players, but I'm sure the table will fill up as we develop over the next 2 hours. Thanks very much for joining. Let us know where you're tuning in from, what you're up to today. So is it with the absolute Raz, 3 6s and a 4 and a deuce, about as bad as it gets?
For the TV table, pot limit Omaha applies to 2, minimum buy €200.
So Cosmin in there with the double suited ace jack 10 7 3, probably the best hand of the lot, and we see king 8 5 with 2 hearts. So Andrea swapping top pair with a gut shot and king high flush draw. Peter Latera gets out the way there with the 4 3 of hearts, and Cosmin has the nut flush draw. So with bottom pair. So let's see a turn card. It's the Queen. Cosmin improves to 2 pair, takes a 57% equity lead. River's 7, so the rebink there for Andreas. See if he's going to try and go for a little thin value bet. I think it looks like he's... trying to work out how I get the seat lower. 2 seconds, guys.
Next hand, 4 card Omaha. Straddle 5. C3 folds. C4 folds. C6 folds. C8 folds. C1 checks. Three players. Check. C6 check. C8 check.
So it looks like Izzet's defended the big blind with 3 10s in his hand, and ended up backdooring a flush. So works for him this time. Gonna fire out a little bet there, and looks like Andreas is calling with ace-8. What on earth? Not really too sure what's going on there. Pretty loosey-goosey action all round. So takes that one down, finds a way to make it work with the 3 10s.
Next hand, 4 cards.
Terror with the suited ace here, but bad side cards. I think under the gun 5-handed do want to still be opening it, although it is definitely on the wider side of things. Probably bottom of range open. It's a nice hand for Cosmin here on the button, double suited 10-9-8. I'd definitely be 3-betting this one. I like that decision. Has the benefit of position, and also wants to knock out some clubs or spades from the blinds as well, which can hamper his equity post flop. If he does get Laterra heads up, he is more likely to have those flush draws live, which is very important, obviously. Definitely easier to get value from non-nutted flushes in a heads up pot as opposed to multi-way as well. So all good there. Does flop middle set. Laterra with top and bottom pair. So there's definitely going to be a little bit of money going in here. Cosmin, I think, unblocking top pair and has no hearts in his hand, wants to be going for somewhere around pot. Looks like 26. Don't mind the sizing. And Laterra's still ahead of a decent portion of his range here. Classical 3-betting range would mostly be aces, kings, and some double-suited rundown type stuff. So Laterra's doing pretty well with top and bottom pair. King of diamonds, a disaster for both players, as queen 9 and ace queen straights get there, and it does bring a double flush board, which is particularly tough to play. Cosmin here thinking that his opponent's continuing range is going to mostly revolve around straight draws and flush draws, of which some of those got there. So trying to get the showdown there. I think once he's been checked to again on the turn, you can go for some thin value from hands like King Jack, Jack 10, pocket deuces. But don't mind his decision to check back as well and just pot control. Be a bit of a disaster if he did get check potted, but you do tend to see players not balancing their river checking range out of position to look to check raise straights in these kind of like low stakes Omaha games. So multi-way action here. Andreas opening with the double suited jacks. Getting a couple of callers behind. I like Cosmin's decision. Is it here flopping bottom 2 pair? Does have straight draw as well. Also backdoor spades. Going to start things up by betting. Andreas gets out of the way just to overpair on a gut shot. Cosmin with the kings also going to fold. And the other Cosmin now has backdoor flush draw with an open ender. Out of position, just decides to let it go. Hello, 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 boys and girls. Come and join us for the fun. We've got some 4-5 PLO running on twitch.tv/cashgamefestival. See you there. So not much to discuss here in this hand, as Latera does have the check mark with top and bottom pair by the looks of things. But ace queen gets shown from Cosmin in seat 4, so that's going to take that one down.
Next hand, five cards.
Is it here under the gun? Based on what we've seen from him, I think he's going to play this hand. Oh no, he does fold. That's a good discipline lay down there, just with the queen high suit out of position. Latera is going to come in for, looks like a raise to 5. Caller from the small blind, and Cosmin in the big blind certainly wants to be 3-betting here. Oh, what a juicy flop. Doesn't even need the aces, as he does flop queens full of 8s. 8s full of queens, sorry. Ace on the turn, and things just get better for Cosmin now with the nut boat. However, it might be tricky for him to get some value out of this hand. So I think the other player in the hand was probably going to be weighted around having an 8 the majority of the time. Cosman thinks 65 is the play to try and get some value from that 8. With a hand like 8-6, Queen 8, we do block that, we'll be paying off. But folds, and looks like he's going to show his hand. Let's see if we can see what he's folded there. Oh, just folds the 8. Yeah, so 65 was too much on this time.
Sit 1, rate 5. ¿Hasta
So we got the 5 straddle on. So the terror with the call and the cutoff. 9965. Seems reasonable with only 5-handed. Probably just be opening myself. So everyone in for the 5, and we get 10-6. I'm going to look around the hands there. Andreas has flop top pair with some backdoor stuff. Turns himself the open ender with the Queen 9. Not anyone in sight with the Jack. Is it now deciding to lead with his King Queen 6-5? It looks like Andreas is going to decide to take matters into his own hands here with what looks like a well-timed check raise to 60. 70. I beg your pardon. Does think he's bluffing, but is indeed actually going for value in this spot. And is it out an 8 or a 9? But looks like he's going to decide to let that one go. Not really getting a great price to chase the naked open ender there. I did have a 5 as well.
Big right.
So Cosmin here with the best of it does have the nuts straight at present. Only one diamond though, so definitely wants to start protecting against that. Cosmin, the other Cosmin, elects to turn his hand into a bluff with the 6-5 blockers. Interesting, just call.
Bet. 9, 4. Yes, 4 plus.
Six five still good on the river, no improvement there to Cosmin's hand, so just goes check fold.
Small blind. Change for F5. 4. Small. Four fold. 7 fold. 9 raise. 6. 1 call. 3 call. 3 players.
Do it behind the roller. Easy, you don't need to go. Yeah.
1 check. 15, sit 3.
So Latera flopping the Latera Magic, flop the top 2 pair with the pretty razzy looking hand pre-flop.
No?
Very playable hand for Cosmin there, single suited Queen Queen 10 10.
9 raise. 6.
Surely popping it up. And looks like it's a raise to 6. Ante is going to come along for the ride on the button.
Check, 7 check. 9 bet, 12. 1 4.
like we've got a couple of new players in seat 4 and 5. Seat 5 is Klassian Bogdan. Favourite hand is 5-6 suit, he says, so that bodes well for some action potentially.
Five, 9,
So is it jumping out into the lead there with top and bottom pair? Got some information on Cosmin in seat 6. You can see the player standing up there just having a sit down. Says he's a recreational player, 25-year-old engineer. Favourite hand in Hold'em is King Deuce of Clubs. Elects to choose PLO favourite hand as Queen Jack 10-9. And his favourite poker story, he says that one of his friends turned $50 from poker strategy into $1 million over the course of 6 years. Hell of a run that is. Favourite poker player is Phil Ivey, and this has never been on a never been on a TV table before, so it'd be interesting to see how he fares. So Terra picking up a pretty playable hand here. I think he's in the 5 straddle, so it's 2-2-5. Cosmin is opening the button.
bet, 20, 3 calls.
Action turn card here, as Andreas improves to a flush draw, has 6s for the blockers for the 6-8 straight. Does get a call out of Latera, who has turned himself a wrap. Ooh, and there's a card that both players will like to see. Andreas improving to a flush, Latera with the straight and a flush blocker. So 2-5-2 in there. I think the only choice for Andreas here, or Ante as he's also known, is to shove it in. And Latera calls a little bit reluctantly, but quite quickly. So sees that he got. His 7 was ahead on the turn, but Ante there doing what Ante does. Big winner across the last couple of cash game festivals. Cosman here racing up to 8 with a kind of connected-ish hand. Much prefer Laterras here, double suited 10, 8, 9, 6. Can go two ways, either 3-bet or calling. Flops the bottom end of the straight draw, and middle pair does Latera.
Events for the main event, 500.
6-bet 30. Race it, sit 9, 80. 1-4.
Shame we can't pick up everyone's cards. A couple of issues with the RFID this week. But Cression there, the player that we can't see, has led out for 30. I'm not entirely sure what's happened here, but Is It has improved to a straight on the river. Ooh, and I had top set as well to go with it, and River's the full house. So that's going to get the job done there for €602 pot. Cression looks like he had ace queen, so was probably bluffing, I guess. Ace king queen, something like that, maybe with a 10. And a nice pot there for Is It, taking it down and getting the cake with the turn full house. Probably had his opponent dead. Let us know what you're up to, and if you are in the chat, do make yourselves known. So similar board to last time, 10, 10, 9. Very small pot, and it looks like Cression has led out for a pot-sized bet there. People do tend to play these paired boards quite honestly in 5-card Omaha. Only really continuing with trips or better in their hand. Alienatu, how you doing, mate? What games and stakes do I play? I travel around playing Omaha for a living. So live 2-2, 5-5 or 10-10, 4-5 or 6-card Omaha is my best game. How about yourself? Do come from a No Limit Hold'em background though, but I really feel as though there's been a switch over in terms of the softness of games to PLO. A lot more action on the live tables, and it creates a much better environment for people to enjoy themselves that are, you know, recreational. Alienatu says he plays with some of the people you were looking at. Oh, that's cool. Who do you play with? The Cosmins? Huevo, good to have you back, mate. Where's your favourite destination to play? I really like Bratislava because it's close to it's close to Vienna. And there's a 5-5, 10, 20, 5-5 game with a 10 or 20 button straddle there. In a place called Golden Vegas Poker Club in Bratislava. It's one of the best games I've ever played in, and people are kind of sort of giving it away there. It's a lot of fun. So I like playing Bratislava, and you can hop over to Vienna where the action is incredibly soft. Hold'em, Omaha, I'm not sure what's happened there, but it feels like they're about 10 years behind the curve. So back to the hand here, and Latero looks like he's turning his 9 blocker into a bluff with the nut flush draw. Does have Queen 9 for the nut gut shot as well if the jack cut does come. He's got a double gutter as well. A 7 would get the 9-5 there. And Cosmin and the other Cosmin come along. The river is a king. And somehow Cosmin's 6s is the best hand on this relatively connected board. Shows the 6s, both other players missed, and looks like that's going to get the job. Ooh. Yeah, it's going to get the job done. Bratislava is in Slovakia, it's the capital city, right on the Austria-Slovakia border. The casino there, the Banco Casino, is one of the best I've played at. We do have cash game festivals there regularly as well, and you are able to get a free hotel room for 6 hours a night of play, which is a fantastic deal, obviously, and suits you if you are a sort of low to mid stakes grinder. At the moment, they've got a load of guys from the local football team, Slovan Bratislava, who are playing 5-10 there all the time. I battled with those guys quite a few times, and suffice to say they're not the best poker players, but they are a good bunch of lads, and it is in good spirits. Rozvadov's okay. I just find that the place is a little bit empty and desolate. Don't know, it's kind of a weird vibe in there. It's been manufactured in the middle of nowhere, and it feels like a film set. It's very odd, and the games aren't that great either. Like, I played a bit of 5-card there, 4-card. They're okay, but I think going there for tournaments is reasonable from time to time. Yeah, Austria is a great spot where skiing's close by. I've heard that a lot of skiing resorts have like really weird, like soft games popping up from time to time. I think Jeffrey mentioned it yesterday, and I've definitely heard that from another mate of mine, Leo, who does a lot of skiing. So Krastion can't quite see his whole cards once again. I'm just going to go to the tech team and try and get him to sort that out.
7 fold. Nine call. 1 fold. Heads up. Bet.
We played in Ukraine. I heard there were some good games in Kiev, but it may have been a few years ago. That's interesting, because whenever I've played a guy from Ukraine outside of Ukraine, never played in Ukraine, they are typically very solid and decent players. Not much action. But I might be going to Poland in December for some action in Warsaw. So looking forward to that. Some sort of private underground games, as I think live poker is technically illegal there. Alienatu's going to Kiev in 3 weeks. Good luck with that. Are you going to be playing some poker? Or is it strictly business? And I'm going back to Bratislava in December as well for the Polish Poker Championships that they've got there. 200,000 guarantee for a €200 tournament, loads of side events, and the Polish guys that come over just basically get absolutely wasted for about 4 or 5 days. Playing cash 24/7, there's a lot of good action. Oh, that's interesting insight. Yeah, that's true. Russians are a rather polarizing nation as well. You do get obviously some of the top players in the world are Russian, but a lot of them are absolute lunatics. Strictly vodka and strip clubs for Ilianatu sounds like an absolute plan. So Ante popping it up, gets a couple of callers there. And checks round. Turn is a jack, improving him to third set. Cosmin now might be thinking of going for a double barrel here with his queens. Chooses a sizing of 32. Seems reasonable, about 3/4 pot. Looks like Izzet's called with King 3 with a flush draw. Slightly ambitious, I think. Flush draw isn't that likely to be live. 3 ways, and you do have 3 clubs. Plus, you know, when Cosmin is leading into 2 players here on the turn, even though the flops check round, he is just going to be quite heavily weighted towards good 2 pairs, straights or bluffs. And the bluffs beat you, for the most part, clubs. And it looks like Andreas folds the jacks and his opponent shows the queens. They have a good bit of a laugh about it. Really tough to put Cosmin there on the queens. Betting twice into 2 players. Just going to be given a lot of respect for that line for the most part. Yeah, Polish guys are great. They're very loud, boisterous, and just love drinking. Were they absolutely smashed, were they? Biggest piece of advice for doing well in live PLO games is keeping sessions short but frequent. One of my biggest leaks I noticed when I started, but I was playing like 10 to 12 hour sessions, and you know, PLO is very complex. There's a lot more combinations, of course. There's a lot more things to think about, a lot more lines to take, a lot more things to be processing at the table. So I definitely try and keep sessions short and sweet. Don't be afraid to hit and run when you do spin up like a 3 or 4x stack. With general standard of live PLO games being sort of loose, passive, splashy, it is very easy to do in your money. So sometimes I like just doing, like, if it's a place where poker's open 24/7 a day, I'm starting to try and go towards 3-hour sessions a day when I'm there, with breaks in between for like gym or study or something. Peon smashed at 10 in the morning. Yeah, live PLO is all about just playing good connected hands with nutted potential a lot of the time, and you know, focusing on V-pipping mostly in position. Trying to keep pot small pre-flop in 5 card is, I think, important, just because ranges are equity runs so close between the hands. So if you're a professional player, your edge is going to be predominantly post-flop. You don't want to just start gambling like a lot of people do, splashing pop, pop, pop pre-flop. Try and get in there as small as possible and navigate your way around the hand. It's going to be much more beneficial for lowering variance and improving your win rate. Especially as like not many people really in theory are rolled to play live PLO. I certainly shot take quite a lot, but I play quite a tricky balanced post-flop style where, you know, a lot of people struggle to find balance in their post-flop lines, and I think that I do that quite nicely, and I am able to induce some bluffs and get some check raises in there, and other spots where people are just betting and only getting with the 1 bet as opposed to the check raise. Thoughts about hit and run when you play with the same 20 to 30 people? I don't like that. I think you need to kind of respect the money that flows around a small community in that respect, so it's probably better to just stick it out there. But if you're in a big game and you know it's getting a bit ridiculous, there's loads of drunk people potting it all the time, and you're up a few buy-ins, you know, if you're starting to feel tired, then it's a good time to leave. Yeah, Hold'em, I grind long Hold'em sessions. I've played for over a day a couple of times. In fact, one of my most degen stories was going straight from work. I used to work for a company called KPMG in London. Went straight from work on the Friday, and was still there on Sunday afternoon. Went home, slept, and got up and just went to work again on the Monday. One of the most degen things I've ever done. Crasion, not Crasion. Thanks very much, Alienatu. Appreciate that. What have you found the best resources for studying PLO? Jay Nandez puts a lot of good content out there, and he does have upswing courses as well. The PLO University and the PLO Lab are both ones that I've worked through that are really nice. There's some decent content on YouTube as well if you really flick through. Watching the final table replays from PLO tournaments is very interesting, just to learn some of the short stack strategies and how the best players in the world are navigating. I found that to be a good resource for Hold'em 2. Just learning what people are doing and which spots. I think PLO tournaments are one of the softest formats of the game at the moment, just across the general poker landscape. A lot of money to be made there, no real knowledge of PLO ICM out there, and people just adjust very poorly, so certainly something I've been looking at. So let's go back to the action here. Ace Jack's going to be taking this one down, so a fairly insignificant pot. Crasion just giving it up. Crasion, sorry. Yeah, it's more fun. You know, you can get away with playing higher VPIPs and not just completely doing it in like when in Hold'em. There's a lot more to think about. I think I'm someone that comes to poker because I do find a lot of things quite boring, so I need that mental stimulation, and that's one of the main reasons that I love poker, is because it just keeps my mind focused and on the ball and on doing something productive, rather than lounging about procrastinating and, you know, overthinking. So poker definitely helps me with that. PLO, I would heartily recommend it to anyone who's if you're starting out in Poker Ideal, if you're a seasoned professional or a long-time grinder, making the adjustment is going to make you more money in the long run. The games aren't going anywhere, they're super soft, and just due to the fact that there's so little learning resources available, as there are in, you know, people watching Doug Polk videos, for example, it's just improving the bottom standard of the players to the point where, you know, live low stakes no limit Hold'em games aren't really all that soft for the most part. About 5 years ago, when, you know, I was a pretty shitty Hold'em player starting out playing live cash, you know, taking ridiculous shots with like a 1k bankroll or something, I was making double the hourly I am now in that same local 1-2 game, and, you know, that just goes to show that you know, the people who are playing with better players or have access to this readily available content, it just improves the whales into fish, the fish into bad regs, and the bad regs into, you know, solid players. I'd like to think everyone has, but some people are a lot shrewder than me, like never taking shots, just when they had the 1k bankroll, always playing like, I don't know, 10NL or 20NL online or something. But that's not for me. Is it flopping the 5 and just taking it down with quite a large sizing? I think when you only have one overcard there, yes, you do have the ace, which is going to be the best hand the majority of the time, but you do want to just set a slightly smaller price for your opponents there, just to keep them in with anything that isn't a 5. No gamble, no future indeed, sir. That's a motto that I've lived by even as recently as the beginning of this year. I was living over in Ireland with a friend, who was meant to be staking me, but when I got there, he's done in his role. He was playing. He won a $215 hyper turbo W coupe for 25k, and he was like, I was completely broke, busto, and he invited me over and said, I'll stake you, play the live game, we'll do some online, and you can give me some coaching. So I went over there on that premise, and by the time I got there, he'd done it in, and we were living in a place with no heating and under a bare bulb, and I was grinding $1 tournaments on Party Poker. It was the opposite of where I saw myself in poker. It was kind of a weird one. Snap in what regard, Alienatu? Yeah, I know, that was some dark days grinding the $1 PLO tournaments on Party Poker, just because he had no money left, and I didn't even have enough money to go home. So it was a pretty shitty experience, but managed to build it up to 1,000, took some shots elsewhere, won a tournament in Ireland again in March for 15k, and never really looked back from there. But certainly some ridiculous shots along the way, as Cosmin now improving to the top boat, and Andreas has a jack here as well with the jack of clubs, royal flush blocker if he's feeling a bit spicy. It's not really a spot that anyone ever bluffs in, but because you do just get snap called by boats. Playing level here in Bucharest, I don't think people are as bad as I thought they'd be, and I think that that's generally due to the fact that the local economy is a little bit weaker than other places in Europe, so you do tend to get people that are a bit more careful with their money when playing, you know, at a level like 2-2, which is obviously everywhere in places like Rozvadov, and would be considered low stakes in many places in Europe, but here is, you know, usually the bigger game. So I think that means that the standard of players does improve. And I think I played a 5-card game on Monday night when I got here, 225, and it seemed pretty solid. There was a couple of guys that I didn't think were that great, that were the value, but overall I was quite impressed by some of the guys at the table. There didn't seem to be much bluffing post-flop, though, I noticed, which of course does sort of ring true across the board in 5-card PLO, but there is much more action in other parts of Europe for sure. I had a spot where I had 4 spades in my hand because it was limp round pre with the queen high spades, and the guy hadn't bet the nut flush draw on the flop and then double barreled, and I think he was giving me a reverse tell as well, because he was like staring at me, looking absolutely petrified. I was thinking, you know, he's kind of milking it here a little bit, but did end up flicking in the call and was wrong. Huevos, thanks very much for joining us, mate, and it's been a pleasure once again. Yeah, sling me a message on IG, because I can't message anyone with this ridiculous band thing that I got, so that will be great. Looking forward to that, and enjoy your lesson. Catch you later. Alienatu, yeah, bluffing is kind of limited. So the Terra flops the king high flush draw. It does have bottom pair as well. Let's have a look through the other hands. Looks like he's got 69% equity. That can't be right. Andreas, the only other real hand in there with the straight draw, but he can't really continue. No hearts, and that overpair not doing too well for his chances. I just saw a lot of spots where people could bluff that weren't, and then a lot of spots where there should be lots of bluffs, but it seemed to be always the goods. So it's more of like a value-heavy game, which was an adjustment that I had to make quite quickly, as I was down about 2 buy-ins straight off the bat, which wasn't great. Just stopped bluffing as much and calling as much and playing a little bit more aggressively in position. Playing less hands out of position as well. Tightening up a little bit because it's still quite loose passive pre-flop. Cheers. Took a couple of tricky lines as well, where I induced someone who, you know, wasn't betting a set on the flop to then bet the set on the turn when I had top set and the king high flush draw, and managed to get the stack there. And I don't think I was going to get the stack if I'd just gone bet. He probably just folds the turn or something. So playing a bit trickier, playing a bit tighter but more aggressive in position, just to try and thin out the field. I thought people weren't really balancing their checks a lot of the time as well, which obviously benefits you if you do have position a lot, because you can stab and have these profitable lines. So Antti here is going to be piling it in with what? 7s and 6s. What's going on there? Not sure what we're seeing here, but Andreas just with 7s and 6s. Not going to be good versus the top pair with the gut shot and the jack high flush draw. Takes it down 666. Bit of a gift there for Krasian. A little bit of a break while we are waiting for that next hand to start. Krasian there, the chip leader at the table. Quite a shallow stacked 2-2 game, it has to be said. Usually you do tend to see some 4-figure stacks in the mix. Just 662 being the top stack. So multi-way action here, everyone calling the straddle. And Andreas looks like he's in for the spin, popping it up with the 99774. Latera calls with an incognito hand, can't quite see what he's holding, and Cosmin has 3 kings, doesn't want to be playing with that. Yeah, not much action here. I think Andreas is the most aggressive player, but he's more sort of favours on the side of calling the majority of the time. That's a great flop for him though. Oh, three hearts, 7 in the window, and by the end of it, just a bottom set on a dicey looking flop. 4-3 is a relatively safe card on the turn. None of the straights getting there. So now hearts or 4-5 are the only hands really that beats him that play this way. Surely would have had a stab with queens or jacks or kings. And does have the set of a set on the river. And didn't get any value from it, so checks that one. Anti, they're absolutely seeing off the alcohol-free beer. Ace King King 8-3 for Cosmin. Looks like we've got another another straddle on. Just calling. Does have pretty bad side cards with the 8-3 there. Cosmin, the other Cosmin also with Ace King King. Interesting, and he's got a much better one, but decides to limp as well. And Latera is going to pop it up here, potting it with Ace Jack 10-9. Certainly a fan of that. We'll probably find a way to win this hand as well, as both of his opponents have kings. So pretty passive stuff there from Cosmin and the other Cosmin. A decent flop for Latera, as most flops are with this kind of hand. Flops himself the top end of the wrap, backdoor spades to boot. Bets 50, that should clear out the other two, I think. Just the naked overpairs for both of them, no flush draw, no straight draws between them. And does indeed get it through. The super wrap. Cosmin there with the nut suit, but really bad side cards, and just electing to limp. I think folding or limping, it's marginal either way. They are only 5-handed though, so probably do come in for the call, as you do have some nutted potential post flop with the nut suit. Flops top and bottom with the nut flush draw there. Even has a gut shot to boot, so about as good as it gets for the ace queen 7-3 deuce. Might get a street from Cosmin by the looks of things, who has some backdoor stuff going on. And does turn some equity now with that king of hearts. Does Cosmin, picks up a gut shot to the queen. But the other Cosmin, I think, should be pumping it here. Yeah. Straight blocker with the nut flush draw and top and bottom. It's an easy bet. Latera had top 2 on the flop, so I don't think he should be going anywhere, but does end up folding. Possibly... I don't think you can be too worried about 3-4 in this spot because he has limped under the gun, but I mean, if he's limping as wide as that, then he probably does have that.
Dorim să le oferim șansa mai multor jucători de a acumula vouchere, iar în acest sens, managementul a decis ca tombola să fie reprogramată pentru mâine la ora 23.
So Cosmin in there with the double suited Queen Jack 10-9, lovely, very playable hand, and there you see flopping the wrap with Queen High flush draw, which is going to be the best of it. It does have Ace King, which is obviously top pair, but miles behind in terms of equity. And Andreas there's, and these are the tricky spots that you can get into quite easily if you do play these low suited sort of hands, where you know he's picked up 2 pair and an 8 high flush draw, but he's pretty much in jail versus Cosmin's hand. Cosmin does just call. Probably thinks his hand is so good that he wants to get Izzet in as well behind. But Izzet just folding there. Just the top pair. It's not going to perform well multi-way in the spot. So 10 does improve Cosmin to a straight Jack 9 now. Continues to check. Wouldn't be the best turn card, I think, for Andreas to start attacking based on what that check calling range is going to be on the flop. And I like the check back here from him. Dicey river for both players, for Andreas, as Cosmin does get there with the flush. Should be comfortable that his hand is going to be good here a lot. And Andreas looks like he's just going to check back the 8 high flush, so missing a bit of value there as Cosmin. So Krasi on the chip leader at the table, moving up to 850 euros. Been a decent session for him so far.
main event, pauză 15 minute.
Cosmin just deciding to flat with the ace king king on the small blind. Is double suited as well. Is relatively short stacked, so I think best chance on the 5 straddle here, the best play would just be to pot this, and let's hope that he does pot it in behind. Oh, he's got a dream spot there with all that dead money just to try and get it heads up with Stefan and commit his stack with the ace king king 6-2 there. A little bit on the passive side, not particularly a fan of that. Does flop top set though. And Andreas here has the nuts with the royal flush draw, so money's going to be flying in here, no doubt. Straight flush draw, I beg your pardon. So Cosmin just continuing his rather passive sort of line, and shouldn't be too scared of aces, as not many hands with aces in them are going to bet the flop. So really only worrying about the queen 10 here, and Ante has pretty much everything locked up in terms of he has a straight with the flush draw as well, so doesn't need to go too large here, just wants to really make sure he does get those calls from ace king, king jack. Sets of course are going to call the majority of the time, but I think going this big is a little bit of an overplay. Want to keep in some of the hands that we've got pretty much in jail. Worse flush draws as well. Hands like 10-8 that are basically dead. Is it there? And C8 should be getting away from this one. 3 hearts in your hand, limited connectivity. It's just going to be an easy fold.
One raise 5. Two call. 5. 3 raise 20.
And the Terra popping it up to 20 in the cut-off there. Like that decision. Does mean that your suits are going to be a lot more live if you can thin out some of the field.
One call. 2 call. 3 plays. One check. 3 bet 50.
Finding top set with a flush draw, just about as good as it gets, and Clasion can't play, just with the gut shot. I was double gutted actually and did have the king of diamonds, so could have considered something, but Latero betting so quickly there into three players, shrewdly deciding not to continue. I like that.
One raise, 5. Two raise, 15. 3 call. 4 call. 8 call.
So super multi-way action here as just about everyone wants a piece of it. Krasion in there with the king, queen, queen, 9-3 double. And Cosmin again continuing to play very passive, just calling with the aces pre-flop. Maybe knew that two of the other guys had aces in their hand and it wasn't going to flop the flush, who knows. Latero flopping the nut flush draw, looks like he's got a gut shot to boot as well. Nice start for him.
Call, sit 9. Call, sit 1. Sit 2.
And no one with the jack, so that might mean that Izzet might be quite likely to have the jack there. Can't quite see what is playing with. Ooh, spicy river there for Krasion. Picking up the nut full house. Just deciding how much. Both players do have less than pot and does indeed decide to stick the money in, put the jack in the spot. And Izzet there deciding to stack off, and he's going to see the bad news as Krasion there has rivered, queen's full, just slow rolling his opponent a little bit potentially. Bam, gets the job done. And what was the up against? Jack 8 from Izzet. Ouch, that's an unfortunate one. Had a dominating lead and got 2 outed for the lot on the river.
Over. Over. Okay.
Looks like we've got all the straddles in play here. Peter straddling it up to 20, so all of a sudden this pretty small stakes game has become absolute carnage. And Stefan here's got a really nice hand to start piling some money in. Just calls, interesting. I think with all the dead money out there, the play is to raise, try and force some people out behind that could share some of the equity that you have. And Cosmin just calling with this really nice double-suited jacks hand once again. Not a massive fan of some of the decisions here pre-flop. Ante's call is a little bit too wide with the 4 diamonds. And Terra's deciding, I think the whole reason for it that was he wanted to have the spin. He is going to get some action here from Stefan and probably Cosmin. Oh, going for the limp jam is Stefan, and I don't mind that as well. There's a lot of dead money out there. There's what, 162 in the pot. 102 of that are people that have not shown a lot of interest in taking the rest of it, so does find himself in quite a nice spot to try and force some people out here. And Cosmin has the decision here with a really nice hand, whether he wants to commit his stack with it and kind of gamble. When Stefan does take this line, for the majority of the time he is going to have a hand like aces, which is pretty bad for us with an ace king jack jack. But we do have two strong suits, some connectivity as well. Just think that we've played our hand a little bit too passively, not opening ourselves. If we are aware of the table dynamic, Latera putting the 20 straddle on with 200, usually indicative of someone that is just wanting to gamble. So we could like min raise, he pots and get it that way. And Gonzo just wasting a bit of time here. He's never going to be calling with this hand. Istvan, how you doing, mate? Was Georgie really your horse yesterday? Or Christian, his name, sorry? So the money goes in, Stefan flopping top pair with some backdoor stuff, has a gut shot to boot now. And Latera just firing across the 6-8, which is of course the nuts. Latera doing what Latera does best, getting the absolute lot. How come he can't afford his own buy-in, seeing as he's won that 200k like, what, 2 years ago? Is there any juicy dealer's choice tables with 6-card triple board? Not on this one. Nick Kennedy and Vile Sadi. Usually me, him and us three are usually the ones that get the games going, and not many people play those sort of wacky games here, so we've not been able to get that one going. I've been mostly focusing on just commentating and enjoying the nightlife because I'm not a massive fan of the rake structure here.
Main eventul se va relua într-un minut.
One call.
4% capped at 25. Who's that type? A Tivaze? Tivaze? It's not your name, is it? It doesn't. TV Birdsay. Oh, is it Jamie? No. Not sure who that is. Oh, Alex, how you doing, pal? Oh, Bursey. Yeah, that's why. Sorry, I was trying to work out what was going on. Yeah, the rake's ridiculous. So I'm just not bothering with it, to be honest. Yeah, good meeting you, pal. We had a lot of fun there. Jesus Christ, some of those nights out were absolute carnage.
Whereabouts
are you at the moment? Are you in Malta with them or staying at home?
New blind 600, 1200, MTV blind 1200. Acesta este ultimul nivel disponibil pentru late entry și re-entry. Last
No problem, pal. We've got one coming up in London in February, so there'll be plenty more time to get back on the old wagon. Looking forward to getting you boys out to another Cash Game Festival. It's a lot of fun, that's for sure. But yeah, it's pretty much just going out every night and not playing just because of the rake. And I played like 350 hours or something in a month, which is just ridiculous. So I needed a break. Yeah, sweaty London night out, and I've got a lot of mates down south who are living in the city and stuff, and quite like it down there. There's a couple of decent clubs around the Clapham, Brixton type area. Yeah, not too bad. Connor, you've definitely met Connor, who was playing a lot, and Sam Clark are here. So we had a good one last night. Went to a local karaoke bar called Mojo. Went up there, did a bit of George Ezra. Connor was doing some old school crooner type tunes. And then Sam was absolutely off his nut, doing some Backstreet Boys at the end. It's absolutely paralytic. It was great fun. Who's doing it in? It's been a relatively passive table. I mean, there's so many spots that people could have taken that just weren't. Andreas did pile in for full pot with 7-7-6-6 on like ace 10-5 or something, which was interesting. Craig CU12, fresh out of his 10NL grind on Sky, hopefully giving us some insight into what we're doing in these 5-card streets. Ministry of Sound still open. Is that a club in Bucharest? Yes, standard night for Sam, that's true. He was looking very ropey, and that was about halfway through the night. Ace King 7, Andreas flopping top 2 pair, but only with 7% equity. What am I missing here? That must be the pre-flop stuff. I think the equity calculator here has had a bit of a mare. Not sure how Krasian, whose 2 pair is dominated, is on 23% versus top 2, but you never know. Ministry of Sound in London. Oh yeah. I don't know. I don't think so. Didn't that one shut down? That was under the bridge, wasn't it? Because of like local noise complaints or something. Well, he does find a way to get there, does Krasian, with the backdoor straight. Looks like he's going to lead out, and it's not what Ante was hoping for there. disaster of a turn card and an even more of a disaster of a river for him.
Small blind. 5 cards.
Then if you win, you go to day 2. If you have chips left, you go to day 2. I don't like Texas.
7 fold. 9 call. 1 call.
No, that was for
Thank you. 1 fold.
So, sorry, I was just going to grab some water there. Krasian has an easy pot here on the button. Does indeed go ahead and make it 10. Popping a gut shot versus Izzet's bag of dicks, basically. Pocket 9s here on this board. Doesn't elect to use his range advantage, does Krasian. Certainly a board where he's going to have a lot of the stronger hands, of course. And Izzet's deciding to pile in this 60 now with the open ender. And Krasian gets away from the queens. So, a couple of interesting plays there. So a bit of a slow table so far, which is, you know, rather atypical for 4-5 PLO. Usually a bit of more of an action game, but you know, when we do come to countries with weaker local economies, you see the local players do tend to play rather tight. Possibly the fact that the usual game here is a little bit smaller, and they're taking a bit more of a shot. I've just told the DGen story about the playing a little bit earlier, playing $1 party tournaments in a house with no heating in January in the middle of Ireland, because the guy who was meant to be backing me had done in 25k that he'd only won a couple of months before. What other ones, mate? There are so many. I don't know what to pick out. Thank you. Tell the stream about Philippines. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, so first night, we've gone out on an absolute mad one in Manila. Literally just got there, dropped the bags off and got after it. And the typical thing that happens when you do go to these Asian places is on the first night you just get scammed for the absolute lot because you're fresh in there, you've got no local knowledge. None of us are smart enough to check what's going on online beforehand. We just bowl straight in the mix. So we've gone to the seediest part of town where obviously all the carnage is, the lights, the atmosphere, the cheap drinks, and loads of girls. Managed to find our way into the most westernized place going, which we don't do well at blending in with the local culture. We just jump ourselves straight in on what all of the other Western mugs are doing. So we've ended up in this bar called Royal Club or something. All of us have picked up girls. Head back. It's I don't want to sound arrogant, but it is ridiculously easy over there just to sort of bowl in. You can almost point at one, and just because you're white and tall and Western, it's something that I guess they're into, and there's not much money over there as well, so they do tend to be a lot more easy going. Anyway, head back to the flat. Everyone's absolutely getting wasted, playing Naked Ring of Fire, and we all pass out. Like, I've woken up on the bed just absolutely fucked. Walking around in the morning thinking, where's my fucking phone? I was playing tunes on Spotify when we went to bed. Phone's gone. Walk into Jagger's room, and he's in there passed out, looking like an absolute state. I'm just like, I've lost my phone, mate. He's like, oh, unlucky lad. A couple of hours go by. Jags sort of comes flying in saying, you sure you lost your phone? Yeah, still lost it. And I was like, yeah. Runs back into the room, got no idea what he's doing. Stuff's flying everywhere in there, clothes all over the place. The bird that he's brought back has nicked about 8 bags in cash out in the sock under his bed. It was a devastating start to the trip. Brutal beat there for Jagger. You go in Thailand in 2 weeks, getting all the birds. Be careful, mate. Be very careful. I've heard some bad stories from Thailand, and I've been on the wrong end of a couple of stories like Jagger has as well. First and foremost, you've got to keep your wits about you. Most of them do see you as a walking money tree. Yeah, so we got absolutely rinsed on the first night. The first night I was in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City, capital of Vietnam, for APT. The first time I went, we ended up in a bar, and basically you go in. There's loads of girls there playing pool. You're not really sure what the crack is, whether they're like prostitutes, soft prostitutes, or whatever. And they just end up charging you the most ridiculous prices for drinks, and then when you try and leave, there's like 4 massive guys on security being like, pay. So I think around a couple of rounds, we were in there only for about an hour or so drinking, and it was like watered down fucking vodka anyway. It was absolute shite. Weren't even that drunk, and it's like 800 quid they charged us, and we're just thinking they've had our fucking pants down here. This must be a bomb pot or something, because everyone's in, and most of the hands should have been folding pre. Yeah, definitely hide the cake somewhere and try and keep as little amount of cash on you as possible. Use something like Monzo or Revolut, I think is a lot better. Obviously keep everything on your phone. I think keeping money digital is the way to go. Obviously if you are going there to play some poker as well, you might have the cake is a lie. Serendor. that Maurits? I remember Serendor. It's either Maurits or a friend of Maurits, I think. Cheers, Craig. See you. Yeah, I'm definitely considering that. Sort of like the DGen Poker Life podcast. Definitely trying to have to hide it from my parents and close family, though. Jesus Christ, some of those things that we've been up to are out of line. So, Stefan with the open-ender here does have a straight as well. A straight open-ender with just a 6, I believe. And Krasian here has top 2. So the money's gone in. Vlog's way out of line. I can't be vlogging the stuff that we're up to on nights out, man. Cheers, boss. Always have good fun telling some stories at the table. Mostly when I'm on the wrong end of a couple of beveraginis, but hey ho. So Krasian improving to an unnecessary 2-pair, a better 2-pair I should say, and it's going to take that one down. Versus the open-ender of Stefan, not getting there. Was looking for a 5 or a 7 or a 10. Couldn't find it. Is this the last 3 hands or?
Straddle 5. C2 is straddle 5. Seat 4 fold. 5 straddle. Raise. Seat 5 raise to 19.
Okay, I've just had some info from the tech team that there's going to be some absolute carnage coming up, which is good because this game has need a livener. Character like Franke or someone like that in there just to start blind potting and swigging beer. Definitely been a bit slow. Andreas there going for the crotch stare before coming along for the ride. CTO, as Mr. Ingram would say. So 4-way action here. And once again, most players just should have folded pre. Marion's got a very playable hand. And of course Krasian as well. The other two are pretty loose. Oh, but there is the 5 for Gonzo, who turns a set up against the straight of Krasian, who's got some outs to better straights as well. Only Andreas, but by the looks of things, with the flush draw, backdoor diamonds emerging on the turn. So straight versus set, going to the river, which is an ace, changes absolutely nothing. And Crassian looks like he's bet half pot or so on the river. Seems like a reasonable sizing if you're just going to be targeting sets and 2 pairs. And Gonzo decides to let it go, which I think was a wise decision. Especially when he does go for the half pot, he could even be value betting better sets as well, which is obviously a disaster if you do have bottom set. Yeah, I've seen the hand, the 7-2 off. He can't have lost all of that money in, what, 2 years? Or a year and a half? There's no way, surely. He's getting backed for 2-5. What, the 7-2? I mean, there's no real opinion, is there? It's just it's just an absolute dust, but manages to get it through, applying the pressure on a guy who had to make a pretty tight ICM fold. I guess the only benefit of it is that he was working on his image. He was in for a free roll, right? So. So is it finding a nice spot to get his stack in there with the aces? And Andreas, you know, could decide to force out everyone else here and pot it, but does decide to call. Double suited kings here with really good connectivity. I don't think you're going to be making too much of a mistake by trying to isolate, is it? However, it's now Marion decides to get it in there with a 9-8-7-6-5, and amazingly only has 2%. And do remember, guys, that the equity calculator is based off the folded cards, so can't quite see why that would be. Obviously, his spades aren't live, but he's got the majority of the middle board to himself, basically. So Ante's all in as well, and I think this might mean that Laterra is just going to decide to smash it in on the absolute spin. And why not? 5 players all in. This is the Cash Game Festival Pot Limit Omaha Classic, isn't it? Let's just get it in and see what happens. They might be running it twice, but there's so many side pots. I feel a bit bad for the dealer. Queen 7 deuce with 2 clubs. That's a nice start for Andreas. Surely he doesn't win once again. No, he doesn't. Is it holds with aces somehow? And Andreas wins the side pot. No one having a queen. So Andreas gets, once again, wins the big pot with €874 profit. And Izzet manages to 5x his stack in the last hand. Probably thinking surely someone's got 10s or a queen here. And that is good enough, my friend. 40. Laterra didn't have an awful lot to be working with on that board.
Wait, I have to calculate it for the rate.
Nu e pot limit? Nu e 25. Nu e chef 25?
Da, ai dreptate.
Ce calculezi?
Yeah, it's cap.
So still going to be working up the side pots here as Van Helden 11 says let Maurits play some. He's too busy running the event, I guess. Rushing around, there you can see him in the background, coming to tell the players that we do have 3 hands to go, guys. And aggression frequency looks like Andreas and Krasion are the most aggressive players at the table. Both Cosmins not doing an awful lot. Yeah, he should. I think he'll be playing on the Sveten stream. You can always see him there. And the Sveten stream will be coming tomorrow. You'll also see Laterra there on the left-hand side of your screen. He'll be in that one as well. So Jack 10-10, no one holding a 10. So another paired board where no one's got it. Always kills the action somewhat. No one even has a... Oh, Krasion there has a flush draw with a gut shot and does... Oh, and so does Gonzo with the nut flush draw. So Gonzo's locked it up. The Terror also with the 7 high flush draw, but he shouldn't really be putting any more money in the pot. Yeah.
Less 2 hands.
So a couple of hands to go of the 4-5 PLO stream. We're going to be back later on once again with 2-5 No Limit Hold'em. Games have been pretty good so far in that respect. So looking forward to seeing some more of Sam, Clark, Connor, and maybe Laterra. A couple of the local regs as well. So Christian here, getting towards the end of the stream, does have a 1.7k stack. Looks like he doesn't want to be playing any big pots, as he does just flat call with the double suited aces there. Can't say I'm a fan of it. Latera manages to pick up the nut straight on the flop. And a call there with the top 2 pair. It does have a club blocker as well, so might want to turn his hand into a bluff on later streets. 4 on the turn. Latera chucks out quite quickly another 100 bet.
Last hand, 5 card hand.
So last hand of the 4-5 stream.
Call.
Is it there flicking in the call with the Jack 9954 and a Christian.
C2 call. C3 call.
In comes Latera, playing a lot of pots, has the button. Probably just calling just about anything there. And Cosmin in the big blind on the straddle. Probably just be folding, but I think he gives the dejected little call. And here comes Gonzo from the straddle, double suited King Queen 10 8-8. Certainly like the idea to start pushing the action here. Thin a couple of them out. Should get rid of Cosmin. Oh yeah, Cosmin's going to get away. That's not going to be a playable hand multi-weight. So knocks one player out, which does achieve something. More equity for yourself. It's 5-7 with 2 diamonds. Looks to be a favourable flop for only Cosmin, really. And he's not really smashed it either. Although Latera looks to trying to commit his short stack on the spin up. Should be probably getting this one through, as Cosmin is next to act with 2 other guys behind. Does just have 1 pair with a bad gut shot and a 10 high flush draw. And this might just well be the least action hand I've ever seen as the last Cash Game Festival hand on the PLO stream. Usually stacks are flying in with absolute dick. So they're going to be racking it up, and we're going to be back a little bit later on, in about half an hour or so. Stay tuned, guys. We're going to be coming back for some 2-5 No Limit Hold'em. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye.
Cash Game Festival in Bratislava, day 5.
And you still have a chance to join it.